enlightening, inspirational, powerfully refining, and unapologetically controversial. Conversations with the Royal Empress. The entire world knows the secret of who you are. Now is the time to step into your queendom and become the Royal Empress that you're meant to be. One woman at a time. Conversations with the Royal Empress. Now Akila, she's the analytical Empress. Akima, she's the Empress that will challenge you. And Lakashay Nadira, she's the Empress who tells it like it is. Now, straighten up your crown and be elevated through conversations. Conversations with the Royal Empress.
Welcome to Conversations with Royal Empress. Joining me today are my favorite sisters and Royal Empresses, Akila, Lakashay Nadira, and our mental health professional, Dr. Steffie Turner, and myself, Hakima. Today's topic is loving a narcissist. This is courtesy of our Ask the Royal Empress page. So, ladies, how do you feel about this topic? How to love a narcissist. Now, this is a question that was asked by one of our followers on our Facebook page, Ask the Royal Empress, and her request is that this be one of the topics that we discuss. So, I'm throwing it on the table.
Wow. This is deep. I can't wait for this one.
First, we got to talk about what a narcissist is.
Right.
So, Dr. Turner, can you just break down what a narcissist is for us?
Okay. Well, narcissism is one of several personality disorders, and it's defined as a grandiose logic of self-importance, a fixation with fantasies of infinite success, control, brilliance, beauty. It's a credence that he or she is extraordinary and exceptional and can only be understood by or should connect with other extraordinary or important people or institutions. A desire for unwanted admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonally oppressive behavior, people that lack any form of empathy, resentment of others, or a conviction that others are resentful of him and her, a display of egotistical and conceited behaviors or attitudes. And narcissism comes from the Greek mythology, where Narcissus fell in love with his own reflection in a pool of water.
I actually remember that story in Greek mythology.
He became so self-absorbed with his own image, abandoned, and he drowned.
Wow. Well,
that's everybody I know.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Wait a minute, how did you just say that's everybody you know?
I'm exaggerating, But you know how I think that I'm sure our listeners too. But as you was reading that, I'm sure I know I could think about 4 or 5 people I know that fit that. I'm sure you all can, and I'm sure our listeners could actually say, "Hey, that's some people that I know." So it's very deep. What would you say, Dr. Turner, is the amount of people that probably would probably fit into that as far as in society?
I think it's very pervasive in society. That's why we have the advent of plastic surgery outlets. People that we know that may not be wealthy, they are somehow managed to afford to get, nose jobs or tummy tucks or breast augmentations. And then I noticed, I read an article about over in Africa, a lot of the sisters over there are in pursuit of this perfect image, and they are bleaching themselves to early grave. They have a high rate of death because of using skin lighteners like Ambi to remove the melanin out of their skin. So it's causing a lot of health problems. So it's very pervasive in society, this pursuit for this perfect image or look.
But do you feel that it's always been that way in terms of the pervasiveness of it? Or do you think that this is something that has occurred within maybe the last 20 plus or so years? Have we always seen it as, such a high case or levels?
Yeah, it's become more pervasive in the last 20 years because you have television, now you have social media, and then, society puts such a high value on looks and beauty. They said people that are more attractive tend to get better jobs, get better breaks in society. So I think it's just being pushed, it's a program, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And what do you mean when you say that? I believe I know exactly what you mean. Before I listen to the audience, when you say it's a program, break that down for us.
Okay, because it's like we have an ideal standard of beauty in this country, and it's defined by white people, and it's based on their image. So the more you have this European image, you're considered, more attractive, more beautiful.
What we're talking about right now has a lot to do with self-esteem. And I
Yes.
think it's important to highlight for people that narcissists tend to have lower self-esteem. So just to understand why, that we're talking about standards of beauty and things like that. And someone could say, well, just because I want to look good doesn't make me a narcissist. But narcissism does have an element of low self-esteem involved in it. And if you could just kind of share that aspect of it so that people don't think that we're just saying because I want to, because I think I want to look good that I'm a narcissist.
Right. Yeah. No, not the desire to look good doesn't make you narcissistic. And all narcissists at the core, they do have a sense of low self-esteem. And they say it tends to start in early childhood. They said maybe a parent may have overly praised a child and gave them a lot of false praise and adulation and made them think they were special and that the rules didn't apply to them. So, and then when that child grows up, he may interact with other children and realize you're not that great. It's somebody else just as, maybe good at something better than you. And so then they start to regress or not get along with other people because they always want to be seen as special.
Mm.
Interesting.
And then we take those attitudes into our relationships. So so when we're talking about falling in love with a narcissist, just the example that you just gave makes me think about, okay, I got all of this praise as a child, probably more than I should have. And so now I expect this same behavior from my partner. And if I'm not getting this, then I'm going to behave like a narcissist typically behaves.
Or the same type of praise from any kind of relationship, friendships, workplace, student teacher. And I'm sure all of us probably have seen that type of behavior where people actually expect and desire and actually need that in order for them to feel full and to be able to function.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't think they ever feel full, and that's the problem.
Well,
It's like
the fullness.
Huh?
They're usually empty. You feel empty all the time.
A false sense of fullness,
But I think that's the problem with having the relationship with the person like that is because no matter what you pour into them, it's never enough.
Right. And they need more and more and more validation. And so you get exhausted as the partner because you're constantly trying to validate them, and it may take on other forms, with like money or, crossing boundaries with sex, stuff like that to try to help fill them up. It's whatever they want, you're trying to please.
They have an issue with boundaries. It sounds like,
because they feel like their way is the right way, and and they feel like they're special, and because they're special, you should go along with it.
Is it kind of like when people say, a person doesn't believe their shit doesn't stink?
Right. That's it. Exactly.
I mean, that's a hell of a thing. Go ahead, doctor.
I was actually, it's funny that you talk about it. You mentioned something about control. And I was actually in a relationship with a man who, you know, and you know when you first meet someone, you and all of them, and they portray themselves to be just this great individual. And so, of course, I fell in love with that false image that this person wanted to present of themselves. And not to say they didn't have some great qualities, I'm not saying that, but the grandioseness I was starting to see over time. And it was no matter what person I brought up in the relation, what person I brought up, and it could be just a casual conversation. Oh, you know, I ran into an old friend of mine, and they do this, that, and then, but his comment was always, "Oh, they not doing this and they not doing that. I know somebody. I could do this or I could do that. I know somebody could do something better." So it was constantly putting others down because if it couldn't, if the if the flashlight or the spotlight couldn't be on him, it just wasn't measuring up. And when you got to what it says, when you talked about control, and it would be, it had got to the point, it was like, you know, call me when you're on your way, which I thought was so cute. You know, I interpret that as, oh, he's worried about my safety. And then it got to the point was, you know, because that's how he tried to, you know, I just want to make sure you get here. I just want to make sure that, you know, I know that you're on your way. I just want to make sure I'm ready when you're here. I want to make sure that I'm waiting for you and outside when you come. So, you know, I was so, oh, this is so nice. But over time, it became, call me when you, this guy actually told, call me when you 15 minutes away. I said, I just called you to let you know I'm on my way. Why do I need to call you in 15 minutes? If it's only going to take me 30 minutes to get to you, why am I going to call you in 15 minutes? Then in 15 minutes, call me in 5 minutes to let me know. I said, oh, this
You
ain't
know
going
what?
well. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Because I just thought, you know, in the beginning, it's like I guess the longer the relationship went on, he just, he wanted to increase the amount of control. But of course,
and
I'm a
power.
strong black woman. I wasn't having it. But can you shed some light on that? Because that was the craziest thing to me, just being in a relationship with someone who wanted so much control over the relationship.
Yeah, that seems like that. He seemed like a real control freak, you know, like almost sadistic kind of, you know. It's like a
Mm.
tug of war. And
Yes,
then
it was.
yeah, to call that many times. And so, did you wind up doing it?
Well, you know, in the beginning, I was like, oh, okay, but you know, it seemed cute. But like that, you know, when that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach, say this ain't
Yeah.
right, something ain't right. So first I thought maybe he trying to get rid of another chick before I get
Right.
there. You know, this is what I'm thinking. But then as I
That's what I was
I was
thinking.
around him and his mother, and I saw the control that she was trying to have over him or had over him, I was like, oh, this dysfunction right here. I'm bouncing. And so
Yeah.
when I saw that dysfunction, I had to bounce. And
Yeah.
but think about the people who may not, who may have a high tolerance level. I just don't have a high tolerance level for nonsense. So for somebody who may be more patient or have a high tolerance level, I really see that as them being in a situation where they're controlled, manipulated, or exhausted because they're trying to make this relationship all about this person.
Exactly. And another characteristic of a narcissistic partner is they have unreasonable expectations of somebody. Like to ask you to call that many times, that's so unreasonable. But that's the core feature.
Now, you mentioned something very interesting, Dr. Hakima, when you mentioned his mother and you mentioned control. So are you saying that you saw control in the relationship with him and his mom, meaning she had a sense of control over him? What do you speak more to that? Because I'm just trying to understand and see the connection.
Yeah, she seemed to. I mean, I know it's when you have a parent, you know, when you're dealing, when you're an adult and you have a parent, they still treat you like you're a child. And I understand that. It just seemed more over the top. Like the whole, if we were there for 2 hours, she was constantly trying to dictate or control what he did as far as his life. And every minute it was, no, why don't you do this? And it was just, I could see the high level of stress in his face. Like, I got to go. And I'm thinking like, you know, and it was something my grandfather told me when I was younger. He says, if you want to know how a man going to treat you, watch how he treat his mother or watch that relationship. And so that's just my grandfather words just rung in my ear like, oh my God, something ain't right here. But yeah, like I say, it was her level of control over him. So I guess somehow in his relationships, I guess he felt he needed to have the ability to control them because maybe because she was so controlling over him. I don't know.
I read an article that said that there's no kind of relationship that a person can have with a narcissist other than a confusing, gut-wrenching, and addictive one.
Woo.
And that the characteristics of the narcissist induce an abuse-prone relationship dynamic. And that's when people are talking about loving a narcissist or being in a relationship with a narcissist. I think that a lot of times we hear about domestic violence, and even though we label it domestic violence, you know, one would sometimes, I mean, that's kind of what I think about when I think about abuse, even though we know that abuse can be verbal or it can be physical. But, you know, if you find yourself in an abusive type situation, I think it is something to consider that that person may have narcissistic behaviors, and that maybe you need to start looking to see like that little checklist that people have as far as what a narcissist is. But the thing is that, you know, somebody listening to us could also listen and say, hey, okay, this person displays this. And I think anybody can have a narcissistic trait and not be a narcissist. But, you know, at any given time, because everybody has ego. And so whenever the ego is bruised or anything like that, sometimes that a certain behavior will come through, but they're not a diagnosed, certifiable, somebody that Dr. Steffie would
come into contact with.
Right.
So you saying that we should have a card in our purse when we come across somebody like that, huh?
You
And
better
say, call Dr. Turner.
Right, start checking out this checklist. Like, okay, this person is displaying all of these. But I think, though, seriously, that we need to really consider abusive relationships, that there could be something underlying there dealing with narcissism, because what forces another person? Why is it an abusive type relationship? And usually it is, because if you can never satisfy somebody, what happens?
Right. They're unhappy and then they act out. And sometimes they become abusive, try to exploit you.
And in manipulation, I think a lot of people tend to get manipulated. And I think narcissistic people tend to be manipulative, extremely manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fall under control right there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's another trait of theirs. They say they take advantage of others to achieve his or her own needs. It's very exploitative of others, and they lack empathy.
And you know, that's very destructive relationships where you have someone who you're in a relationship with someone and they lack empathy. So that means whatever pain or whether emotional or physical pain that they're inflicting on you, they can't remove you from that circumstance and put themselves to say, okay, I know where you're coming from, or I know how you feel. So you can't really communicate your feelings or your pain to them because they don't have the ability to feel empathy. So it's like a waste of your time. The communication barrier has got to be broken, because as much as you say this is hurting me or I can't understand why a relationship is like this, they looking at you like you crazy. Because for some folks, they can't connect with you emotionally. They can't seem to be on the same level as far as the communication standpoint.
And then it also says they're just downright unwilling to do it. Not that they can't, they're just unwilling to do it.
What do you think? I'm curious to know what the unwillingness is.
Why? Because they feel like they don't have to, because they feel like their way is right, and they feel like they're entitled to it. And so they don't have a need, they don't have a desire to bargain with you or to meet you halfway, or to recognize how they may have hurt your feelings.
That's amazing to me, how how you lack empathy for other people, or how you can see someone going through pain and you can actually turn away from that. I mean, even though we know that there are people who are manipulative in that way too, but to use their pain to try to manipulate another person. But but I just see certain behaviors, like even some of the things that I've seen, like even on social media, where you know how everybody shares memes and things, and then you realize that they are basically subliminally trying to send messages to somebody else, particularly when you know the you know, if you know the people in the relationship and you kind of know, and it's like, you know, to me that's another form of manipulation.
Yeah, affecting your self-esteem, because those memes can be very suggestive. They can say a lot of things, a lot of mean things.
I'm a little nervous because I'm the meme queen. I love sharing all these different.
I do too, but it's a form of communication, though.
Yeah, but you're not directing the meme, Hakima, at somebody you in a relationship with.
Oh, this is true. This is true. This is true.
I mean, we can all relate to a meme, but I'm talking about sometimes people will. Some of the behavior too can be seen as passive aggressive behavior. So, you know, a passive aggressive person doesn't do direct confrontation; they do confrontation in another way.
Subtle.
Right.
Yeah.
So it can be a subtle passive aggressive move, but you know, so it seems like some of all of these behaviors, and Dr. Steffie obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but some of these behaviors actually intertwine. So a narcissistic person can also be a passive aggressive person.
Yeah, and that's another core feature. They are typically passive aggressive, you know, because they're gonna get you one way or another, especially if you don't do what they want you to do. And they're very, what they say, they're very charming. So you don't necessarily know that you're being manipulated or they're out to get you because they need to charm you. So the way they become aggressive towards you is in a passive manner. You know, a sly comment or a slick put down.
And they're bullies oftentimes. You know, a lot of them fall in the category of being a bully, and you know, in their own way. It's really interesting because even when you look at other disorders, some of them may very well cross over. But I find that with those who fall into the category of narcissism and narcissistic behavior, you know, just in terms of being living in this fantasy world that they have a tendency to live in, and you know, it's like being in a place, and the only place or the only person that's there is you, because you're the only person, you know, who's out of touch with reality in most cases, but you don't see yourself. So it makes it very difficult, therefore, for that type of person to be able to relate to what is considered to be the norm.
Think about, as we talk about the narcissists and their inability to feel or inability to communicate or have productive relationships, makes me wonder what the environment that these particular people grew up in as children. Because what type of nurturing, I mean, if you can't feel, it has to make me question what type of nurturing environment did you come out of? Because this is a question. I don't know if there's necessarily an answer. It's just the fact that we know a lot of people's issues come from the environment in which they grew up in. It just makes me wonder if that plays a role in the narcissist behavior. Is it a lack of nurturing or a lack of communication or a lack of love? I mean,
Are you saying to make somebody become a narcissist? Or?
yeah, I'm kind of curious to what type of environment a narcissist would grow up in, or maybe it has nothing to do with the environment that they grew up in. I mean, that's just interesting.
Part of it is that, like I was saying before, that the parents they over admire them. You know, they just adore them and give them a lot of false praise. So they grew up in an environment that's very stimulating. You know, you're the it child. You're special. You know. And so, and the trouble comes when they grow up and meet other people and they don't get that same validation that they did as a child. You know, you're so perfect,
Okay.
you know, you're beautiful, you know, you got curly hair, you're light skinned, you know.
Ooh. Ooh, I like this. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense, as it helps me understand that it's that addiction to attention.
Yeah, it's an excessive need for admiration and attention, and that's how they wind up attracting their mate, because their mate usually would be codependent, somebody that don't feel, they're not arrogant or anything like that. They might not think they look that good, so they like giving and nurturing, so they'll go good with the narcissist because they don't mind giving, and the narcissist don't mind taking.
And taking,
Ooh.
and taking.
Yep. And then the other thing is children of narcissists. Say, for example, your parents was a narcissist and you are a child being raised by a narcissistic person. And it can have if you don't turn into a narcissist, the other effect will be that you'll kind of walk around kind of damaged. Say, for example, you couldn't make simple decisions about where to go eat because you never got that chance because your narcissistic parents decided everything for you and for them. Even on your birthday, they tell you where you're going to eat.
Wow.
So it damaged the children. Once they grow up, they become damaged because of how their parents were. Like if they made straight A's, the parents take all the credit. They have my genes or we did this. So they suck the life out of people.
So would you say that narcissists can very well be like a vampire,
Right.
sucking the dang on life out of folk? Because that is a lot of energy when you think about it. That's a lot of energy.
Out of all of the personality disorders, the one that's most likely to kill is the narcissist, because if you ever hurt them or betray them, they're going to spend the rest of their life trying to get even with you. So even, according to like the sociopath, you expect them to kill at a higher rate. They might, but not as quick as the narcissist, because they don't get over being betrayed or rejected.
Lord,
Yeah.
and we got a social media page full of narcissists. Good.
The might. Yeah.
I mean, really, that's what they, the people who, they feed off of that. And I think that it's like a narcissist's dream world to be on social media, because it's like, look at me.
That's why we have 45 texting the way he does, because that's attention, all that tweeting.
Yeah, he can't help himself.
That feeds that narcissism. I'm great. I had the best presidency since, I'm fabulous. I'm great.
Ooh, I wonder what his wife. But you know what? When we talk about loving a narcissist, don't Melania look like she's just tormented?
Oh my God! I feel so sorry for her.
I guess after a while, she probably has become immune to it.
Yeah.
And she's used to the behavior or whatever else is experienced. You mentioned you feeling sorry for her. I don't, but I get why you do.
I would just say because we lie. Technically, I don't. Service announcement.
She was trying to be nice.
I'm trying to be political. I'm in DC.
Wow.
As a woman, I kind of do feel bad for her, but on the other hand, she knows what she signed up for, I think.
See, that's all I was saying. But you're right. We are humans, right?
And again, like she said, it's charm. Even the brightest of us as women, or even men, because let's not act like women aren't narcissists too. And a man can end up with a narcissistic woman. People who are narcissistic are very charming, as we've said. So it's easy, I think, to get involved with a person who's like that, because they're charming. And because of who they are, they will chase because they want to conquer. And they want to get the object of their desire. Now, once they get you, what they do with you is a whole other story. But they will definitely woo you and make you think that they are the best thing since sliced bread. And I think any of us could potentially fall for that. But they still show us signs. And it's that sometimes I think the other signs are overshadowed by the charm. And that's how we end up, I think, getting in relationships with narcissistic people. Pretty sure I've probably had a couple narcissists in my life.
Yeah, I definitely know that I have. But like you said, the charm will get you. But see, and like you mentioned, there are signs, but I think once you get past that, then you kind of figure it out. Even if you don't know exactly what it is that you're dealing with, it's something that you need to be running in the other direction. Like, I don't know what this is. Like, Dr. Hakima, you mentioned it and made, that you said that earlier. You're like, okay, know what's going on here, but I need to go.
Some red flags.
Yeah, let me go. You didn't understand it maybe at that time, but you realize it didn't take long. It probably took maybe some months or whatever, because sometimes it has to settle in. And sometimes, even though we might see signs, some of us just kind of need it to be repeated over and over again, for us to finally just get it. Then we like, okay, I'm running. It's like that Freddy Krueger movie, or, one of those other scary movies, The Black folks usually gonna try to get the heck up out of there.
That's why I think it's important for us to I think it's important for people to, when you're searching for someone or interested in getting a relationship, is trying to scratch beneath the surface. People, as we just stated, people who are narcissistic will present themselves as being, really successful. They're charming. They like all the attention. They can be somewhat controlling. And knowing that, people need to be a little more critical on those outstanding people that they meet that seem to be so perfect. You know what I mean? Oh, they this, they that. Oh, they got it going on, but do they really have it going on? And what is it about them that you feel that they got it going on? Sometimes we let people sell us this image, and we fall in love with that image, and that's not really the real person.
Right. And I guess pretty much, yeah, that's exactly what it is. That person presents their other half, and that's the one that we fall in love with. And then over time, then the leaves begin to fall from the tree, and you see exactly, it just bare and bone, and you see it for what it is. It reminds me, I know someone who was married to a narcissist. And it was really interesting because eventually their relationship did come to an end. But as it was falling and crumbling, just some of the things that came out. For one, this person actually had the whole world, not the whole world, but had quite a few people believing that they were professional ball player. And they believed it in their own mind. I really do believe that they believed that, but they were not. There was no record of this person playing professional ball or anything alike, but they had, like, many people, when they spoke of this person, they spoke of him as if he was this professional ball player, and they even had the team and everything. Oh yeah, they used to play for such and such and so-and-so. That's what they told that people for years. And so here you have a person, and they grow up, and this is what they actually tell their spouse. This is what they raise their children to believe, and even coach their children in that same ball profession. But this is who they believe that they were. When they dressed, they were very colorful, in that they made sure that they were seen, which that's not hard. It wasn't hard for them to be seen because of, the way that they looked and the way they were built. So that was not difficult, but they were extra. They were probably those people out there that you see on Easter Sunday, men in pink and yellow suits, looking like a clown. No disrespect to those men who wear pink and yellow suits who look like clowns.
They look like clowns. I'm sorry.
Our inbox about to be full, I'm telling you, boy.
But he had all of the characteristics,
He sounded like he had another kind of personality disorder, though, to me. I don't know. What say you, Dr. Steffie? You sitting up imagining you've invented a whole other life? You sure he didn't have a what's that? What is it called?
It was like he became delusional, started believing it.
Well, see, that's the thing. Even with narcissism, it's like they live, within a fantasy world, within the confines of their own mind. And
Right.
that's the thing. He was living in this world that he desired. You know, maybe that was his person, you know, maybe that was the person that he created as a child, but he actually believed that that was who he was.
Mm.
You know,
And
yes,
was
it was
actually
definitely
lying
delusion.
about it.
Hmm.
And was actually lying about it.
Hmm. But see, yeah, exactly, lying about it, but he believed it. So that's the thing. In his mind, it probably wasn't a lie. And yeah, that probably was mixed with a little something else. That's like a hard drink, you know. Bartenders, mixologists, when they mixing stuff up, you can't combine certain things. You know, it's just like drugs. Certain things just don't mix well. And so in this case, you know, he had a lot going on.
I know it has to be hard to be in a relationship. I can say that just in terms of when I've had to do child custody mediations, and a lot of our trainings had a lot to do with obviously dealing with what they would consider barriers to mediation. And so because of certain personality disorders that somebody had, it meant that you couldn't really do a mediation with these people. And
Wow.
and so a narcissist is somebody that it's almost impossible to mediate with because they're narcissists and they're unreasonable and they really can't see past, you know, whatever is they bought into in their own mind. And so you have to be able to spot that personality when you're doing a mediation, because then you understand that it creates a barrier, and then, you know, or how you can work around the fact that that person is narcissistic. So I always think that if you can't even mediate with the narcissistic person, how in the hell is somebody
Wow.
supposed to
Mhm.
negotiate in a relationship with a narcissist?
Wow. It's all one way. It's a one-way relationship, is what it sounds like.
What would we suggest for people who have ended up in a situation? Is there help for people who
Get
are
out.
that's you
She
said get
said,
out?
"Get out."
Mhm.
She said, "Get out."
Get out. Mhm.
We saw the movie, right?
Get
Run
out.
as fast as you can. But is there any kind of help for somebody who is a narcissist? Like, I mean, other people get they have counseling, they have other things to treat other mental disorders. Is it treatable? Is there help for somebody like that?
Not really. This is the hardest one to treat because they don't think they have a problem and they rarely come to treatment. So, you know, they don't go to treatment like people that are depressed or anxious, because they feel like their life is good, they look good, they feel good, they're entitled. So you rarely see them in treatment. The only time they show up is they do something wrong at work and they're mandated to treatment, or maybe a husband or wife is going to leave them if they don't go get help. But you know, they are hard to treat, and so they usually don't do well. They drop out of treatment and then they marry somebody else
And
and
the saga
find somebody
continues.
else or go get
And
another.
start the process all over again.
Right. The saga continues.
Right. They marry frequently. They may have 2, 3, and 4 different marriages or different jobs, different careers. They just, because they don't have to stick with nothing because they're privileged. They go from one thing to the next. And then people
Wow.
like them because people like being charmed. So they're never without an audience.
I just think two people are also enjoy being around someone who I call them peacocks, because I can't stand them.
Right.
The person that got to be, look at me, look
Right.
at me. They in the room and it's like 50 people in the room and they feel everyone must be looking at them.
Yeah.
It just seems like people think that that's a popular person. It's not that they're popular. It's just that they're a peacock and they want
They're
all
a
the
peacock.
attention on them.
And then over
So
time, they learn how to get that attention. You know, they can work a room, you know, because they've been doing this since they were a child. And then if you're their partner, you may start enjoying it because you're getting the attention too. You know, you with the most popular person.
wow, it's deep. And
Mhm.
it's amazing they can't get help because they don't think that they need help. That's
Mhm. And now if they went to go get it, they probably could go get it, but they don't see that they have a problem.
So basically, they have to be backed into a corner, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Or mandated. You know, they have to be
Forced.
threatened with the loss of something, you know, but
Right. Yeah, the loss of something. You know, it's interesting because I wonder, I don't know the stats on this, but it would be interesting to know, um, statistically speaking, what it looks like for those individuals as it relates to infidelity. Because if in fact they feel that, you know, they are privileged, they are God's gift to the world, then I would assume that it would probably be a higher rate amongst those individuals who suffer with that.
Because they
But
wouldn't even
just the same way what you said with
consider,
marriages.
yeah, they wouldn't consider their conduct as infidelity. It's like, I'm this special person. I'm entitled to have
Mm-hmm.
a second mate or a third mate or 3 wives or however that goes. You know what I mean? So they're entitled. So they don't look at it as infidelity.
Is it, or maybe the person that they're with is not giving them the attention that they feel that they need, so they have to always get more and more attention. If they don't get enough at home,
They're gonna go out looking for it. Sister Lakeisha, I just put up this article that talked about narcissism and infidelity, and they said of all the people that they found cheating, that it was a higher rate of narcissists that were, you know, that didn't mind cheating, stepping out on their spouses.
Makes a lot of sense. Wow.
Because one thing, they get bored real easy.
Yeah, I would guess so, huh? Because when you think about somebody who constantly needs praise and needs to be uplifted and needs to have the light shined on them, I guess if it's not coming fast enough or enough, then it will bore you.
Right. And then they're interested in you, and they said they go through what's called a devaluation phase, and then they said that's when the narcissist will usually become emotionally absent and distant almost overnight. The narcissist no longer tells you how much he or she needs you, loves you, or enjoys being around you, but instead become increasingly critical towards you. So you ain't giving them what they want, so they're not giving you what you want. And then now they're telling you they're not happy. They're unhappy. Maybe we should try something different. Because it's just an instant switch. They become emotionally absent and distant.
You know what that makes me think of when you talk about the narcissist is when the Quran, it talks about how Allah will give you, the disbeliever, your own blood to drink as sweet wine. Or the person that's intoxicated off their own blood. That's a narcissist. It's like you high off your own self, basically.
Yeah.
And people that's in your life is not because you love them, it's what they can do for you. You're just using them. So it also depicts the myth of these people who think, I took somebody else's man or woman, or if they handle business at home, I wouldn't have been able to take their man or woman. You know how people talk. It has nothing to do with you. It's just the fact that they're bored. They've conquered someone, and now they're looking for someone else to conquer. They're looking for a new victim. That's just what it sounds like.
That sounds absolutely right to me. Because my attitude is you can't take something that actually belongs to somebody else anyway. So a narcissist probably really doesn't belong. They don't belong to anybody but themselves. So you can't take a narcissist. He or she wasn't that other person's to begin with.
Because sometimes we think stuff is all about us, or we think when we get in a relationship with someone and they may have just got out of a relationship, that person makes us feel like, oh, we're special, or I'm leaving them because of you. In reality, it has nothing to do with us. It ain't that we're special. It's just they're manipulating us into thinking that. So, I mean, that's something that a lot of men and women need to hear, because I hear that so much. I'm constantly in debate with men and women who feel like if this person took care of their business, is just how they say it, if they handle their business at home, I wouldn't be able to be with a man or woman. I hear this all the time. I get into disagreements with it. So this just proof. Now I got a good comeback. Now I got a good comeback for them. But so often people think that's why I think it's very good to really give people, when people are coming out of relationships or claim that they're leaving a relationship because it's not going well, you need to step away from that person and let them figure it out, because you could be put in a situation of being manipulated. They may not leave that person, or if they're leaving, it has nothing to do with you. They're just bored. I just think sometimes we get too caught up in the emotion and not really understanding how we're being manipulated. This is good stuff right here. Good stuff. So I hope our listening audience is really, really taking notes right now, because I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. I can hardly talk because I'm taking notes.
So Dr. Steffie, maybe if you can share with our listeners some things to kind of be on the lookout for as people prepare for relationships, because one thing I noticed, well, I don't even know if I want to go there, but
no, go there.
Go
Tell
there.
it like it is, Lock D.
Well, let's see how I can put this so it can be nicer.
Oh,
We're in an age right now
I'm
where.
sorry. And Lucky Shay Nadira, she's the one who tells it like it is. So
let me go. So in telling it like it is, I have noticed that we're living in a day and age where desperation for women to be in relationships, it seems like at an all-time high. I've just noticed, just from just reading articles, watching things on social media, it seems like people will do whatever they can do to find themselves in a relationship. And my concern is that when you're desperate, or when you are that thirsty, it'll be easier for someone like a narcissist, to roll up in your path and you greet them with open arms. Because you're so wanting a relationship, you may very well miss the signs. So for my sisters out there, and brothers too, because hey, and again, of course, this is not all sisters and it's definitely not all brothers, but I do understand, everyone wants to be in some kind of relationship, but in that, buyer beware. So as sisters and brothers, prepare themselves for relationships, Dr. Steffie, what can you say? What can you share with them in terms of signs that they should look out for? Some of the things you've already said, but maybe just a recap, so that they won't, find themselves in trouble.
Okay, if you see someone that's exhibiting inordinate need to be perfect, a lot of perfectionism, a great need for control, somebody that lacks responsibility for their actions, they're constantly blaming or deflecting away from themselves, people with poor boundaries, somebody that lacks empathy, and then somebody that feels superior and entitled. So those are some warning signs of a potential narcissist.
Those are all great things to, pay attention to, I think. Sometimes these things, again, they'll easily go over our head. And we don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we're dealing ourselves out of a hole, because we didn't pay attention and we done fell in a dang on ditch, hoping that somebody comes by and pulls us out. But it's too late, because we're buried in this foolishness. Because it can be very dangerous. Very dangerous. You made a key point early. And I just really, if you can just repeat that just in case people weren't listening.
Out of all the personality disorders, the narcissist is the one that's more likely to kill.
Exactly. Kill, y'all.
Spiritually, could be spiritually too, right? Not just physically.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's something that, that we need to pay very much or close attention to. We are, in the month of October, domestic violence month.
Yes.
Which we know. DV, it can go both ways, male or female, can be abused and the abuser. So, beware, sisters and brothers, beware.
I wanted to just interject and say that sometimes, to me, some signs that you have to watch out for too is those rushed situations. I remember a relationship years ago that I was in, and the guy and I was saying, slow down, I like you, I'm not going anywhere. And he made the analogy he made to me. He says, it seems like I'm on microwave and you on conventional oven.
Dang.
Damn.
Whoa.
Did he say that for
He
real?
absolutely said it. That was.
Oh, I gotta use that. I gotta use that one though. That was smooth. I gotta use that
Mhm.
He was Dr. Steffie and already told you they charming.
Right.
Very charming.
However,
Yep. Yep, and you don't forget them easy either.
I know I forgot him, but the point is that
one.
no, but
Damn.
no. No, but
Yeah.
seriously, but for me, but the reason that stuck in my mind though is because the point is that what I couldn't understand is why do you want to move so fast? And that's a red flag to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, you want to move fast because you want to lay it on thick, lay it on heavy real quick, and then try to get that quick fall in love. And so then you can stop pretending to not be the narcissist that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And then two, he they feel empty all the time, so he needed to hurry up and experience you. He needed you to fill him up.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's a business.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's deep.
And
So
it's
sometimes they'll
something.
tell you who they are,
Yeah.
Mhm.
even though it sounded charming. It didn't hit me
It
like
didn't resonate with you.
No,
you know.
no, it made me kind of raise an eyebrow, like, say what now? What's wrong with conventional oven? I like the oven. I don't use a microwave personally. So,
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's
I
that's-
warm my food
that's
up
deep.
in the stove and on the stove. There is no microwave in my house. So you tell me you want microwave, that's a red flag for me.
Yeah.
Oh my
Because
And
God,
I
that's
want to know why you need to push so fast. Well,
Exactly, because you're not codependent, so you and him weren't gonna mix well. You stopped that right off the bat. Like, wait a minute, something ain't right.
yeah, no, I dated him for a little while, but it wasn't right. And
wow.
and there were things that you start to see. But see, here's the thing, and I can acknowledge this myself. You can see red flags, and sometimes you ignore them again because of the charm and because the person seems like they're so into you. And so then
And
you
then
start
it
to
feels
question-
good too.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
and
course.
then you start to
Good.
question: are you being too? Maybe I'm being. I can't think of the word that I'm looking for, but you know how women are. We feel like we're being too like our standards are too high, or
Right, right.
judgmental, or we're And so my thing is, if somebody gives you that feeling, believe it. If it seems too good to be true, maybe
It probably is. Mm-hmm.
And that's why, again, it's good to self-check. Evaluate yourself, making sure that you're on point in your own thinking and that you're not desperate and that you're not so emotional and so in need, a needy person. I mean, like you said, because those things can make you feel good, especially, I mean, I can remember because just even listening to this conversation in the beginning, I'm like, of course, yeah, I know people and I probably dated people, who fall into that category. But as Akila, something that you said, it kind of triggers something. I'm like, like Scooby-Doo, like, oh, like, hold up, wait a minute, this is bringing back memories here. And it brought me to one person who I remember I dated for a period of time. Oh, they had all these characteristics, and interesting enough, when I realized that, okay, time for me to exit, then I remember them leaving me a voice message. I had to keep the voice message on my phone until it finally had to erase itself because it was just so cold. They pretty much broke me down. They diagnosed me to tell me what was wrong with me because I chose, to get out of the relationship. And I do remember when one of the main signs for me, I remember we were out and there was this little boy, and we'll call him Forrest. And he kicked, the person that I was dating. He kicked him. Now he kicked him on purpose. And I guess the little boy probably was about maybe 6 or 7 years old. And so I was like, oh my God, that little boy just kicked him. This is a big, tall guy. So y'all want to know what he did? This is a big, tall guy. He turned around, he took his big foot and he kicked Forrest so hard,
Mm.
probably almost knocked the wind out of that little boy. And I said, oh my God, when my mouth opened, like, oh my God, what? He was like, look, that little sucker kicked me. He was sure I'm going to kick him. But it was the way that he did it, I'm like, okay, this is not right, because it was not, it really wasn't. But when I realized there were many signs prior to that I had seen and witnessed, but of course, I was in the feel-good moment, So I was trying to brush it over. I was trying to justify it so that I can remain. But I had to exit out the door anyway, once I realized that no, this is what it is and I can't deny it.
And I think a lot of people can camouflage their behavior in a short period of time. I had an older male cousin that told me years ago, he didn't give me the 90-day rule, because they got that 90-day rule for sex. He gave me the 90-day rule in terms of a relationship. He says that a person, for at least 90 days, they can put on a facade.
Yeah.
It's not until after that usually they can't maintain it as much, and you'll start to see the signs. So nobody should be talking about I'm in love in 90 days, because that's a representative. That's usually not who that person really is. Any person suffering from some type of, somebody that's just, has whatever kind of issues that they have, probably has learned over time how to control it to a certain degree to get what they need. And if we are in a rush, you're going to miss it. You can't just listen to words, and even actions. You got to watch them sometimes too, because again, people will do whatever it is that they need to do to secure conquering you.
Because we've discussed the characteristics of a narcissist. They're very charming, they're attention seekers, very controlling, appear to be successful, lack empathy. So I'm going to challenge our listeners. I'm going to challenge you, sisters and brothers. Got to be more critical of the attention seekers, the peacocks, as I like to call them.
Yeah.
The person that wants to be the center of attraction. You got to be a little more critical. Not saying that everyone, listen. We're not saying that everyone who likes to be the center of attention or sometimes in the midst of excitement is the person that's the loudest in the room. Not saying that that's always a peacock. Not always saying it. But be critical of the person in every setting. Have to be the center of attention. That's different. Because somebody could be the center of attention. Their family may not be the person they're seeking in every environment. So let's get that clear. So because you like to be center of attention sometimes doesn't mean that you're a peacock. But be critical, because if you're critical of that person, you will learn if they'll always have to be the center of attention, or if it's just that was just a one and done type of situation. Another thing would be is don't ignore the red flags. If you say, man, why every time I'm with this person, this is what they got to do. If you feel that way, then that's a red flag, and you need to be paying attention to that. Also, do temperature checks. You got to check for empathy. I don't care if you got to pose a question. What would you do in this situation? How do you feel about this? You need to be doing an empathy check, because if they don't have empathy, that's probably a narcissist person. Also, accountability. Have a strong and deep discussion on accountability. And if they ain't for accountability, especially self-accountability, there's a strong possibility this person could be a narcissist. So those are my 4 challenges for the listeners when it comes to identifying a potential narcissist. As we close out, ladies, is there anything that you would like to just add? Any last comment on narcissists?
My only suggestion is to people who are in a relationship married to narcissists, and they may have the question, okay, I'm in this, what now? How do I, maybe leaving is not the option. And so I'm wondering if pushing that person, the way Dr. Steffie talked about, that they have to fear losing something in order to get help. You have to possibly give these people an ultimatum to make them fear losing you to get to the point that you need to be, and that is to get them into counseling. with you,
Yeah.
because I think that is something that I think that anybody that is dealing with someone like that needs to figure out how to get that person help. And, you know, so we got to kind of let them know, hey, I'm in this and I'm dealing with this. Now what?
Oh, very, very. I'm glad you mentioned it. Very good point. Don't want to leave our listeners high and dry. So I'm glad you mentioned.
I'm just saying that's a touchy one, because definitely if you're in a situation, you know, of course we're not telling you to just step away and leave and do an about face, but of course it's obvious that the person does need help. But like Dr. Steffie stated, you know, they're the ones who are least likely to get help. So it can be, you know, rather difficult. And even though the threat of, you know, a loss might make them to feel that, okay, I'll get help. But also you have to remember, these are people who are more likely to kill as well. So, you know, I would suggest that, you know, you do some consultation and you yourself seek out therapy first and work with someone as to ways that you might possibly be able to, you know, work within the bounds of your relationship and try to figure out what your next steps are, because you want to make sure that you're safe at all times.
Thank you, Dr. Shea. Dr. Turner?
Well, one thing I wanted to say about the narcissist, and I want to say something about narcissism and social media, because one of the core features of narcissism is that they like to put forth a false sense of self. You know, they build themselves up to be more than what they actually are. And so the research says that social media is the perfect place for that, because you can pretend to be whoever you want to be. So it makes it harder to detect narcissism, and you are more apt to be, deceived or played by one of them.
Oh, that's deep. Let me
So
add.
what
Let
you're
me add.
basically saying, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say, Dr. Steffi, basically what you're saying is for those, because, you know, we do have a lot of people who do online dating.
Mm-hmm.
So this really is something that people really should be aware of, because the people that's presented to you on these dating sites, and, you know, whether it be whatever part of social media, really beware. Because more than likely, they're wearing several layers of clothing.
Exactly. And it's in all areas of people activity, like what Dr. Francis Cress Wilson spoke of. Just like that's how our president got, one of the ways he got elected, because the image he put out, he charmed a lot of people, and they liked all his tweets and things like that, you know. Or, you know, through social media, he put forth this image, you know, whether it be real or false, you know, he just kind of hypnotize certain segments of the population. And we have this sociopath narcissist that's making, you know, that's running this country.
I want to thank you all for joining us this week on Conversations with Royal Empress. I want to thank you, Akila, Laki Shea, and Dr. Turner, for your wonderful input today on an excellent topic of narcissism. And I just want to thank the individual who requested this topic. Thank you for writing us at Ask the Royal Empress. And if any of you have a topic that you would like us to discuss that we haven't discussed already, please, on Facebook, go to our Ask the Royal Empress page and send us a message. Or you can also do that on Conversations Royal Empress page, and also on our Royal Empress page on Facebook. We're also on Instagram and also on Twitter. Thank you, and we look forward to you joining our podcast next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Conversations with the Royal Empress. Tune in next week for another enlightening conversation. For more information on the Royal Empress, please visit the website royalempress.org. You can also follow the Royal Empress on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Conversations with the Royal Empress is a subsidiary of the Royal Empress organization. All rights reserved.